All right, part two, chapter 10 is, in Green Setup is where it gets really exciting because this is about estimating. And then chapter 11 is about job costing, non optional, must be done. Estimating on the fly leads to a very inconsistent pricing and is not good for the business. He gives a story, Ed does, about how he was going out and helping consult for the sale of a business and someone buying. And he said, "Hey, okay, so tell me, how do you do your estimating? Where are your estimating sheets?" And the guy says, "Estimating sheets? What?" This is a guy who's doing about $1 million in revenue, and he says, "Well," he said to himself, "That's not good." And so, this stuff needs to be put in order. And what it needs to be done is it needs to be done consistently. From the time that he came up in the business, people were just using, and that's fine, simple Excel spreadsheets or whatever it is. But it has to be, a method needs to be established for doing the estimating, make sure the estimating is done well. There's a lot of tools out there now. It is super, super important to get the pricing right. He talks about how the fact that, within the process, not just the sheets that you're using, but like if they have big jobs, they were bidding a big job of $1 million, and they had two different teams that worked separately with crew chiefs and everything else that looked at this thing two and three multiple times. And then they compared the two independently of each other, and they prepared them independently of each other, and then compared them at the end, and in order to try to see what was missing where. And that needs to happen with certain review procedures and processes. Jobs over a certain amount of money, $20,000 or $50,000. It needs to have some kind of approvals. It may be a simple system, but it needs to have a system. So that's the action. Make sure that you have some kind of estimating process. Make sure it's simple. It can keep it simple, but it needs to be consistent. And then consider the team approach as you're going about it. And this might get a little bit longer, is about job costing. And this issue of job costing, if your profit and loss statement shows your results at the end of the year or the end of the month, your job costing shows you, like, per job what you're doing. And he talks about how the fact that, he came along at a certain time, Ed did, and realized his second largest job, he was actually losing money on it when he started to do costing at the job level. So tracking costs by the individual account or the individual job is extremely, extremely important. So, it's kind of like the devil's in the details. The ability to scale, grow, and to get into is necessary to get into the details to be able to have, a lot of, to be able to move the business forward. Now, job costing, a lot of these things need to be tracked, by what goes into it, the components. One of the most important components is the hourly in this industry, is the service, the field, the people, the staff. So we need to see how they're doing by their crews. Some way we can get down to it, maybe not by the individual person, but we can get down to it by the crew level. Some people will cost it out by the crew level. Some people will cost it out by the individual jobs that they're working on. But the more granular it gets, the better off it is. And as Ed says, I'm surprised by how many companies in our industry don't job cost. Regardless of your company size, big or small, if you don't have a job costing system in the time, think about implementing one. And so now, the ability to do this with software is much easier than what it was done previously in the past. In his era, when he was coming up in the 90s, in the 80s even, I guess, it was difficult. But you had to do it, and that was necessary. My uncle was, head groundskeeper at Doral Country Club. I think they had 92 holes or 90 holes or something like that, but they had a lot. And one of the major things, he didn't know much about horticulture, but he knew about budgeting and costing. And that was the big thing that he brought to the table, and he became, the head groundskeeper of one of the largest golf courses in the country. So, many smaller contractors don't do it because they're like, oh, man, really? Oh, geez, and unfortunately, it is kind of like, having to do your spelling homework or your mathematics problems, as the kids, as we watch them needing to do, tracking our business to ensure the profitability, find out where we are profitable is extremely important, right? So, eventually, maybe we want to put incentive systems into reward our employees because they're the ones that are going to be making the difference for us, right? How can we do that if we don't have the proper accounting and the systems behind it at the granular level? So take action. Research which software package you want to use. There's some great ones. Both Aspire and LMN, for example, have excellent bidding and estimating packages that they help. And those are the ones that you need to use. Not those two in particular, but you need to use one of them. And I would suggest you use a landscaping software like one of those two that's mentioned that will help within the landscaping industry. We also need to start to look at item 2, take action, is look at the costing items of non-billable hours. Where are people spending their time from when they clock in to when they get out there on the site? Where is the time lost? Because there's a lot of money that's spent in those areas, and maybe there's some efficiencies to be gained. And then finally, consider an incentive package for your people to get them bought into the process and the system of helping grow the business with its efficiencies on its costing side. This is our audio review summary of the book, Green Side Up, provided to you by Providence Trading Capital Partners, our little gift to you. So let's get on with the next part of the